How do my boobs look? Good?
Amazing.
Being in mind.
Very good.
Well, chesty.
They're
very out there, aren't they?
it's great.
Fantastic. So congrats on season 2.
Thank you.
Looking forward to season 3 and 4 and 5 and
Thank you.
whatever they will
So
write
it's
down.
6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
Make it rain! No.
So, I read that fans had some part of in it that you got the job for the movie. So can you talk a little bit about that, and Emily also how you got to be cast in the series?
Yeah, well, unlike Emily, who is a world famous, renowned, award-winning actress, I had to work hard for my audition.
Go on.
Well, but it was actually the fans who educated me on Neil Gaiman and American Gods, because I was one of the few people that was under a rock and hadn't heard of it. So there was a campaign for #casting Shadow, who the fans wanted to play Shadow Moon, from this famous book released in 2001. And so my name started to rise to the top and put forward more often than not. And that kind of started hitting my timeline on my social media, which made me take an interest. I looked into Shadow and the story, and I thought, that's pretty cool. Spoke to my agents, they put me forward, and they said, yeah, we'd love to see him, he'd be perfect. Not too perfect, because it took 16 auditions and 5 months later, and here I am. What about you? Straight offer, right?
Yeah.
Because she's world famous.
I don't know about that. I mean, Orlando's kind of world famous, and he had like a campaign thing too online, right?
He actually
campaigned for himself.
Mr.
Yeah.
Nancy.
I just got lucky. I think they were very close to shooting, and they hadn't found a Laura yet, and I was also living under a separate rock because I knew of Neil's work, and I'd read some like letters from him. There's a website that I love called now I'm gonna forget what it is. What's the Brain Pickings? Do you know this website? Anyway, I knew of him from that because they published a lot of his like little bits and pieces, but I never read the book, and I just was sent the script of episode 4, season 1, and then and then I met with Michael and Brian, and we had some oysters and some champagne, and then I said yes.
You see,
slightly different
5
process.
months, 16 different tapes. I started in Vancouver, they flew me down, and I had to keep coming for 5 months.
You're the star.
They gave her oysters and scripts.
Think about it though. They didn't need me to audition because they already knew that I could play a decaying, horrible person. So,
Winning.
Yeah.
But now they fly you around the world, so that's fun also.
That's true. We fly around the world without seeing it.
Yeah.
So if you ever need to know what a hotel interior looks like, or conference rooms, we got you.
I don't know if you can tell, but this is like day 6 of 6 days of flying around the world and doing interviews. So I think we've both, more for you. But I think we're at the point of like a little bit delirious.
This is month 2.
A little silly.
Yeah.
Actually, we're moving into month 3, actually, of press.
Well, Ricky's on a different level.
Naturally.
Now I had a chance to talk to Neil about 15 years ago, and we also talked about the book which just came out, and he's told me that time that he thinks it's completely unfilmable. They will never make a movie out of it, a show, whatever. But now you did, and you made it, and it really works in a way. So how do you adapt it? How do you change the figures from paper to screen?
Well, I think that, in the last 15 years, there have been kind of huge jumps in technology and what we can achieve on film. But I don't know. I don't know how you adapt it. I couldn't have done it.
I think on so many levels it couldn't have been made until now. We have the CGI, the technology, ironically, to now put the message forward, but also the content. It really does touch upon some sensitive and important themes and issues that are current and relevant in the world today, unfortunately. Because when Neil wrote this and released it in 2001, it was a fantasy. And he kind of predicted this kind of turmoil and craziness and kind of underbelly of poison that's in America, which has now kind of risen to the top and
Yeah, I
is in
think
all
it's
the
just that
headlines.
it's being talked about more now.
It's always been there, but and it's, I guess with the recent kind of elections and things, it's
We
now
have
been.
to stop talking about this every
We
time.
always talk about him,
I know, it's not
because
good.
it's important, and that's what the show's about. It's shining a light on important topics and issues, and I think that now is the perfect time to make this show because it's relevant. We have this incredible cast, and we have the technology to kind of make the magic that's in the show. So I'm glad they waited.
So what are your personal gods nowadays? I see you have your cell phone right in front of you.
That
And I have my coffee right in front of me.
I had the phone because I was calling my mum.
It's okay.
I was calling my mum.
It's okay.
No.
Just accept it.
My
Just
gods,
admit it,
my
accept
gods
it, it's fine.
are sugar, so chocolate, candy, pizza. Food is very important to me.
I mean, it's important to most people, to live,
Okay,
to survive.
bad food
Yeah.
is important to me. I never practice what I preach, so do as I say, not as I do, because I eat like a 5-year-old child, just meat and
true.
candy.
It's true.
But I always try and push everyone to
In
be
fact,
healthy.
you just ordered meat and candy for breakfast.
I did just order meat and candy for breakfast.
Which is
I'm proud.
disturbing. This is, I always find this the most difficult question, the personal beliefs question, because I don't really know. I feel like I have far more questions myself than answers. I gave a really cheesy answer last night when we were doing our Q&A, which is that there's a quote that says God isn't above us, God is between us. And I like that, so I guess it's like human connection is what I believe in, but that just sounds
So cheesy.
it does sound cheesy.
No,
Come
it's
on.
nice.
Yeah, anyway, that's all I've got.
Now in season 2, your character really changes a little. You get really strong. You lift cars and whatnot. So can you tell us about your development of your character into season 2?
Well, in terms of the strength, when Laura first kind of came back from the grave, she realized that she had this sort of super strength. And in season 2, there is a moment in episode 2 when I'm trying to lift a car, and it would have been, in season 1, she could have done it with a finger, and suddenly it's a struggle. And I think the reason that's happening really is because the further away Shadow gets, the weaker Laura gets, which is kind of ironic and hilarious that this character who's so, she's so kind of brash and horrible in a lot of ways, but very independent and very tough. The fact that her whole mission is to get back to her husband. It's kind of an irony that I appreciate a little bit. But in season 2, she has to be less of a hurricane, and she has to kind of internalize. She has to kind of plan a little bit more, because she finally comes into contact with Mr. Wednesday and realizes that he's a powerful force, and she has to kind of play her cards a little closer to her chest. So yeah, there's a little bit of evolution there. I think.
She's right.
What about you?
What about me?
What about your character in season 2? Come on.
No, the question was for you, right?
Oh, all right.
It was for both of you.
Darn it! What was the question? I was so into your answer.
How did your character evolve from season 1 to season 2?
My answer is a lot easier, because it's basically from cynic to believer. I feel that Laura's got a lot more layers, and there's a lot more to come from Laura, because she's not quite sure what she believes in one way or another, whereas Shadow is.
I think she is sure that she believes in nothing.
Yeah, well, she's sure she believes in nothing, but
yeah,
that's what I find fascinating about Laura and Celine, is Laura believes in no gods, even though she's surrounded by them. Celine believes in one god, even though he's surrounded by them. And I find that fascinating and interesting. But with Shadow, he's just being taken on this journey, from cynic to believer in season 1. and he's an intelligent guy, so he kind of went to a logical answer that he was maybe going insane, going crazy, rather than believe what was in front of his face. And now he does believe. He doesn't understand it, so he wants answers. You know, he's going to start chasing those answers, which is going to cause a lot of friction with Mr. Wednesday, who is reluctant to give that information. Knowledge is power in his world, and he wants to be all powerful. So Shadow's going to be more proactive. Again, though, every time he does speak, it's normally with purpose. He's still always paying attention, which I like about Shadow. He's the protagonist, but we know least about him. He kind of has this mystique, this quiet nature, but he's always listening. And I like the fact that when he does speak, you realize that he's always been listening and he's always been watching. So it's a year of learning and growing for Shadow, trying to find those answers, to which we will find several this season that will probably blow the minds of our audiences.
Well done.
It's good, that, right?
Very nice. Do you both have a favorite scene from the show?
From season 2?
From season 1, season 2?
Ooh, I have a lot of favourite scenes.
Yeah, I've got 2 from season 1.
Well, go on, you start.
So season 1, I have 2. One of them is with Laura and Shadow first meeting in the motel room. So when she's in the bathroom and they're
first
just talking.
meeting after I've died.
After you've died, sorry, yeah. And so when Laura's in the bathtub and they're just talking, it's just a really beautiful scene for me. I feel that you can see the pain and the hurt and the connection between the two. And Laura trying to, coerce her man back and say, look, it happened, but it's going to be fine. We're going to have zombie babies, it'll be good. And Shadow finally stands up for himself for the first time in the show and says that he's not her puppy anymore, which I think audiences around the world were like, yeah, stand up for yourself. But he's still hurting and he can't turn that love off. So it was a nice moment. And the other one was with Mr. Wednesday in the Kinko's, the photocopy place in episode 3, where Mr. Wednesday's talking about all the different colored Jesus. And he gets quite racist about it. And Shadow, you can see Shadow kind of like uncomfortable with the way Mr. Wednesday talks, because actually Ian McShane was just ad-libbing all the different kinds of Jesus. So he took the script and then just kept on going, because he's got that in his locker. He's so good at that, and he just kept on going. And he was going around the world, and it was interesting to see which Jesus they actually took in the tape, because he was like, there's the Australian Jesus. I mean, he's always going walkabout, and he just kept on going and going. And so that's why when you see Shadow smile, it's actually me smiling. And I'm like, that's a lot of Jesus. And so that was actually like that's the first time you see Shadow smile as well. But it was actually because I was smiling at Ian. But it was a nice natural reaction, and I'm glad that stayed in.
Well, I have a lot. I think maybe my favorite scene from the first season is, or my favorite Laura scene at least, is when Laura shows back up at Audrey's house to sew her arm on, and Audrey finds her and runs into the shower and is screaming and calling her a zombie whore. And then Laura ends up on the toilet emptying out some embalming fluid. That's just I love that scene it was written beautifully, but I love it mostly because Betty Gilpin, who played Audrey, is like just so phenomenally talented, and she managed to make that scene that was just the most bizarre concept, like your best friend who cheated with your husband is dead, and he's dead, and she's coming back from the dead, and she managed to play like, I'm angry at you, I'm still grieving, there's a zombie in my house. Like, she managed to make it like funny.
And you want me to sew your arm.
Yeah, exactly. She managed to just like I believed every second of it. So that's probably my favorite scene from the first season. But we should
2.
Yeah, I think I've only seen a couple of episodes, but there's a really, really great scene between Ricky and Pablo, who plays Mad Sweeney, in episode 7. That's kind of, that whole episode is full of like favorite season 2 scenes, I think.
From the feeling I had on set and how much I liked the look of it, looking at the monitors and things like that, and how it felt at the time. There's going to be 2 scenes that I'm really into, and they're both going to be in the season finale of season 2.
Oh yeah.
Which is Laura and Shadow
Yeah,
have a
that's good one.
conversation. And it
Doesn't sound that exciting, but
It
will
doesn't
be.
sound that. Laura and Shadow have a conversation. Season 2 finale. Getting
Sounds
deep.
so boring.
Fire. Tits and dragons. No, it's such a beautiful scene, and it's something that the fans have been wanting since season 1. But it's so beautifully done, and Chris Byrne, our producing director, shot that episode, and it is really wonderfully done. And the other parts I can't say, but it's a huge moment. But I just I would. But that
You can ask the next question now. We
I'm
got
looking forward to zombie babies in season 3 or 4.
Zombie
babies?
in season 3.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah,
Sure, why not?
let's knock them out.
No, but if zombies would happen in real life, I think the 2 of you would just take it in stride and well,
Yeah, I think we could
why not?
deal with it at this point.
I think would be like, yeah, fine. I
Yeah.
mean, there's mermaids, there's leprechauns, there's zombies. There's everything. There's the only thing we haven't seen, and I think it would be interesting. We haven't seen Satan. If there are gods, surely there are devils. Where are the angels?
They will all come.
This is just what goes around in my head. I'm just throwing
Sure,
questions out there.
Why not?
I'm a fan too.
Good. Last question. What do you have at home from the set? What did you keep?
Oh, I see what you did there. You want me to grass myself up. You want me to confess to everything I stole.
Yeah.
You stole things?
So much.
Really?
What? Shadow's jacket's $5,000. I can't afford that.
So you took it?
Yeah. He has
Wait,
5.
I have
I-
like a good answer that's not just a dumb expensive jacket. I kept
the car too. Betty stole it.
There's a scene in season 1 where I'm ripping people apart to save Shadow. And we shot that scene out in a field.
Did you keep
Like
someone's
in-
arm?
No, it's better than that. And we shot it out in a field at like, what was it? I mean, it was all night.
It was like 4 till 5:30 in the morning on a cold
as the sun
April
was
day
coming
in
up.
Canada.
We had rain machines, and I was covered in blood. And I realized after we'd finished that I hadn't put on my Laura. They usually give you like skin-colored underwear, just so that whatever happens, like the blood and everything, so that you can go back to your trailer and change into your own clean underwear. But I had kept my own underwear on, and I happened to be wearing, as is my wont, some like white cotton granny panties, so like a big pair of underwear. And when I got undressed in the trailer, they had kind of an amazing, like almost tie-dyed blood pattern on them. So I kept those blood-soaked underpants, and I planned to frame them.
So
Why did I just admit that?
That's
It's
so weird. It's
but
not
don't
even
you
from
think
set.
that's
That's your
cool?
own underwear.
Yeah, but it's cut.
You stole the blood?
Yeah, but it's a good... Okay, first of all, I didn't steal things that people paid a lot of
I
money
didn't.
for.
I
and
didn't
they're
really
probably
take my
looking
jacket.
for.
I didn't really take my
I
jacket.
think that's kind of cool. I think I'm going to start, whatever project I do from now on, I'm going to
Just
start
gonna start selling your underwear.
No, I'm not going to sell it. I'm going to frame it and keep it in my house.
Just gonna keep underwear from every job.
Yeah, but it's like got a cool blood pattern on it. Come on, I think it's cool.
She's so weird. I just kept the coins that Shadow had. They gave me all the sets of coins. So from his little metal piece in prison that he chiseled out, to the dimes, the quarters, and the moon coin that Zariah gave him. Yeah.
Are you going to frame them?
No, I'm not going to frame them.
You should.
They're actually on my mantelpiece in a line in order of size, because I had to learn to flip every single one. And just when I got good at one, they would throw another one at me, and I'm like, "Are you serious right now?" And then as soon as and so I learned for 2 months, I learned how to roll a coin across my knuckles. And then Ian and Pablo just turn up to set, do that, and they CGI'd the coin. I'm like, why couldn't you just do that with me? They were like,
Hey, that's kind
budget
of like
cuts.
Ian's eye. I have to wear the actual cataract contact lenses, and he just gets his CGI'd. Ricky and I are the real hard workers on the show. Anyway,
We're the hardest.
we're going way
we're
off
the hardest
topic.
working.
Sorry.
No, thanks so much.
Thank
Let's start
you.
out for the interview.